Welcome to our training module on reviewing comprehensive education plans, or CEPs, using the iPlan portal. My name is William Manikis, and I am Senior Director of State Federal Program Implementation and Field Support within the Division of School Leadership. This session is designed to provide an overview of the CEP review process for central and superintendent team members. However, we are making it available to all of our constituents as school leadership team or SLT members and other school and community-based stakeholders may find value in learning more about CEP reviewer expectations. Let's take a look at our objectives for this webinar. First, we'll get familiar with logging into the iPlan portal and show you where to go to access schools' plans in order to leave feedback. Next, we'll provide an overview of each major section within the CEP and the expectations for schools. Finally, we'll share some resources to help you provide high-quality feedback that schools can use to strengthen their plans. The CEP review process takes place in the iPlan portal. To begin, open your Google Chrome browser and navigate to iPlanportal.com. All comments, all feedback on CEPs should be provided through the iPlan portal. This allows us to gather comments and study trends and lets us know which plans have been reviewed and which schools have received feedback. Always use Google Chrome as your internet browser. iPlan was built for Google Chrome. If you use another browser, it will not work properly and features will be missing. Click the green login button, then enter your email address, which for most reviewers is their DOE email address, and your iPlan password, and click Login. Please note that your iPlan password is not linked to your Outlook email or other DOE sign-in systems. It is a separate login. You can always email iPlan at schools.nyc.gov to connect with the help desk for a password reset or other technical assistance. Another helpful hint is to ensure that both your computer's operating system and Google Chrome browser are up to date. One final note about the iPlan homepage. Please note the blue box on the left side of the page, which links to our public resources. These include webinar sessions like this one for each step of the CEP development process. Please feel free to access them for more in-depth information on any part of the CEP development process. Once you log in successfully, you'll land on the home page. Here, you'll find links to school documents, which we'll talk more about shortly, as well as another link to the public resources, which can also be accessed from this page. Don't worry if you see outdated information in the announcements and activity sections, as we're currently working to redesign and update those features. However, if you scroll down to the bottom of the home page, you'll see the reviewer dashboard, which will be very useful for those reviewing plans and providing feedback to schools. Let's explore the reviewer dashboard in more detail on the next slide. By default, The reviewer dashboard will display all documents that you have access to. For each document, the dashboard shows the DBN or district, borough, and number, the school name, the document title, the document status, the superintendent, the date the document was last updated, and any action that is available. While the DBN and school name are self-explanatory, let's unpack the other headers. Document title tells you which piece of the plan you're looking at. Remember that the iPlan portal is a comprehensive planning tool, so it includes not only the core CEP, but also all of the appendices, like the Title I section for Title I schools, the Language Allocation Policy, or LAP, and Title III application for multilingual learners, the Language Translation and Interpretation Plan for families, as well as the Community Schools section for participating schools. You can use the search boxes at the top of the dashboard to filter for CEPs, Title I appendices, or any other document you may be reviewing. There are several different document statuses as well, beginning with Not Yet Started, which means the school has not edited this year. In Progress means they've started updating the plan, but have not submitted yet. Then Submitted. Next is Attested, which means the principal has attested that the preliminary budget and goals are aligned. Then Certified, which means the superintendent has signed off on the principal's attestation. And then finally, Approved, which means that the superintendent has approved the plan for public posting. Most of the plans you will review are going to be in certified status, but not yet approved. If you are in a role where you support multiple superintendencies, you can also filter by superintendent. Once you have found the document you'd like to review, click anywhere in that row to navigate to the School Documents page, which we'll explore in more depth on the next slide. There are two ways to access the School Documents page. The first is from the Reviewer dashboard, which we just looked at. The second is by clicking the School Documents icon on the top left side of the home page. Once you are there, use the drop-down menu to select the school you'd like to review. It has a search feature, so you can begin to type the school name or DBN, then click on the school. Then scroll down the page so you can see the different tiles that correspond to each section of the plan. We'll look at these in more detail on the next slide. For reviewers who want to look at the entire plan in one place before navigating to different sections of the plan and leaving feedback, there is a subsection that says Download CEP with Appendices, followed by the link to the 2022-23 CEP. Click on that link to download the full CEP. Please keep in mind that the downloaded CEP is the full CEP document, and that you'll still need to follow the instructions on the next slide to access each piece of the CEP in iPlan and leave feedback. Once you navigate to the School Documents page, you'll find each of the main sections of the CEP organized into tiles. If you keep scrolling down, you will also find the CEP appendices, like the Language Allocation Policy, language translation and interpretation plan, and, if applicable, the Title III application, the Title I appendix, and the Community Schools section. We'll concentrate primarily on the main CEP sections in this webinar. You'll notice that each tile corresponds to a section within the CEP, which allows you to navigate directly to that section. Each section has a status notification on top, telling you whether it is not yet started, meaning there is no content in that section to review, in progress, meaning that some content has been entered by the school, or complete, meaning that each question has a response. Please remember that these are computer-generated statuses. Therefore, a section may have a status of in progress because the school has answered all of the relevant questions but left a field that is not applicable blank. Typically, sections with a status of in progress or complete can be reviewed. Depending upon your role in iPlan, the link at the bottom of each tile will either say Edit Information or View Information. Click that link to go directly to that section of the plan, review it, and leave your feedback in the form of comments. Once you have navigated to a particular section in iPlan, read the school's entry and determine what, if any, feedback you'd like to provide. Click the Add a Comment button, and the comment box will appear. You can either compose your own feedback by typing it in the box, or select a pre-saved comment by clicking on Pre-saved Comments. To post your feedback so that it will be visible to the school, click Add Comment. Please note that there is no notification feature, so schools will not receive a notification that you have left feedback. Schools are being instructed to go back into iPlan beginning September 30th to access their feedback and update their plans. If you can only see part of the comment box, check your zoom setting in Google Chrome. If it is zoomed in higher than 100%, you may not be able to see the entire comment box. For reviewers who are new to using iPlan to provide feedback on CEPs, or those who would like additional guidance on what CEP feedback might look like, we have developed pre-saved comments in iPlan that address many of the most common issues that we've seen in schools' plans over the years. If you click Add a Comment to open the comment box, then click Pre-saved Comments, you will see all of the pre-saved comments that correspond to that section of the plan. Click on a comment and it will be added to the comment box. You can still edit or customize the pre-saved comments, then click Add Comment to save it and post it for the school to see. Now that we've spent some time providing an overview of the iPlan portal, the basics of the CEP review process, and the mechanics of leaving comments, let's transition to general expectations for CEPs as you review them. As we look at each section of the plan, we'll provide some guiding questions, sample feedback, and additional resources for both reviewers and school users. The guiding questions and sample feedback are also included in the 2022-23 CEP Reviewer Worksheet and Comment Bank, which is linked on this slide and in the description below. The New York City DOE 2022-23 CEP checklist outlines basic expectations for schools, and the New York State Education Department Expectations Form describes state-level expectations for identified schools, that is, receivership, CSI, Comprehensive Support and Improvement, and Targeted Support and Improvement, or TSI, schools. For the school information page, the expectation is that the school updated its information. Given the reorganization that the New York City DOE has undergone this summer, reviewers may want to check the district information, such as superintendent's name and contact information, closely. The next section we'll look at is the School Leadership Team, or SLT, Stakeholder Signature page. Schools are required to configure their SLT in accordance with Chancellor's Regulation A655, which is linked on this slide and in the description, to include all mandatory core members and to include the Title I Parent Advisory Council chairperson as a member of the SLT. Oftentimes, we know that additional stakeholders beyond the SLT contribute to the development of the CEP. To acknowledge this and reflect their participation in the development of the plan, the additional stakeholder signature page was added to the SLT signature page several years ago. Listing additional stakeholders is optional and not required for schools in good standing. Receivership, CSI, and TSI schools have additional requirements from New York State around stakeholder participation and must address each of the 5 SED mandated steps in the CEP development process, document which stakeholders participated in which steps, and what date each step took place. If required information is missing or inaccurate, reviewers should provide feedback to the school, instructing them to correct it. The school summary section provides general information about the school, including its accountability status, mission statement, and a narrative summary describing its unique characteristics and any partnerships it may have. Schools should include what makes them unique. We often suggest that schools consider this a place to highlight the great work they are doing, almost to think of it as an opportunity to market themselves. We'd also like to highlight throughout the PowerPoint deck that the sample responses provided are just that, samples. They are not meant to be models or exemplars. In fact, they could be used to start norming conversations for a superintendent team around what feedback should be provided. Again, they are not intended to be perfect or even complete responses. The next part of the school summary section, which all schools complete, asks for information about the school's primary digital and/or print curriculum for ELA and math, as well as any adaptations that the school has made. This slide and the next one describe the additional requirements for receivership, CSI, and TSI schools within the school summary section. Again, These schools have been identified by New York State and are asked to summarize key strengths and challenges that they experienced in achieving the previous year's annual goals. The expectation is that schools will reflect back on the 2021-22 school year and use both their successes as well as their opportunities for improvement to inform the development of this year's plan. In addition, identified schools are required to engage in an equity self-reflection and conduct student interviews using SED-approved processes, again, to inform the development of their plan. Links to SED's guidance for the equity self-reflection and student interviews can be found in the comment bank and in the pre-saved comments in iPlan. The final slide discussing school expectations for the school summary section again only applies to receivership, CSI, and TSI schools. Another state requirement is that these schools select an evidence-based intervention, or EBI, as part of their CEP. The EBI can be selected from a list of state-supported EBIs, a clearinghouse-identified intervention, or a school-identified intervention, which requires supporting evidence. A link with more information about the EBIs is available in the description of the video below, in the reviewer guide and comment bank, or in the pre-saved comments in iPlan. This slide brings us to the heart of the CEP, each area of concentration, where a school details its priority needs, goals, progress measures and targets, and action plans. Schools are required to complete all of those components for each required area of concentration based on its grade levels served and accountability status. Schools can also complete additional, optional areas of concentration to address a unique or specific need. Click on the area of concentration you'd like to review to enter the Priority Needs and Annual Goals section. If we click on Elementary Middle School Math, we'll be brought to the priority needs for that area of concentration. The guiding questions outline the basic expectations for each field. Priority needs should be high leverage needs, and if the school successfully addresses them, both individual student achievement as well as overall school achievement will improve. Data trends cited should be current and align to the area of concentration and priority needs, including data for student subgroups when appropriate. Root causes should get at the core of the issue, explaining to the best of the school community's understanding why the priority needs exist. Addressing root causes should put the school on a path toward achieving its annual goals. Both reviewers and SLT members can access our full webinar and PowerPoint deck and related resources on engaging in a needs assessment on the iPlan Public Resources page or at the link in the video description below. Establishing the priority needs and determining the root causes should put the school in a strong position to develop a SMART goal using the SMART Goal Builder in iPlan. In general terms, SMART goals should align with the priority needs, data trends, and root causes identified in the needs assessment. They should include all of the SMART elements, be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. They should also align to the values and aspirations of the school community, and this is particularly important for identified schools, as the State Education Department has emphasized the role of stakeholder engagement in goal setting, as well as the overall development of the CEP in recent years. Both reviewers and SLT members can access our full webinar and PowerPoint deck on SMART goals in the iPlan resources page or at the link in the video description below. Once the school has established its goals, the next step is to set progress targets that put the school on a path toward achieving those annual goals. In alignment with the universal screeners and periodic assessment windows, all schools now engage in 3 progress monitoring periods. So the expectation is that schools will select a measurement tool that aligns to the annual goal and a key performance indicator that demonstrates what success looks like. Schools should also indicate their baseline level of performance for that tool and indicator and provide the date when that baseline assessment was given. Using that information, schools should set targets for each of the 3 progress monitoring periods that put them on a trajectory toward achieving the annual goal. CEP reviewers and SLT members can access our full webinar and PowerPoint deck on setting progress measures and targets on the iPlan resources page, or again at the link in the video description below. The next section to review is Section 5C, which contains the action plan, the strategies and activities the school will engage in to achieve its annual goal. The action plan is broken up into 2 tables, one for activities that occur between August and January, and the other for activities that occur in the second half of the school year between February and June. The expectation here is that the school will list out the improvement activities that it will engage in, that those activities are aligned to the priority needs and data cited, that the activities address root causes, and that the steps proceed in a logical order, address the needs of subgroups, and become more sophisticated as the year goes on. Reviewers and SLT members can access our full webinar and PowerPoint deck on action planning on the iPlan resources page or at the link in the video description below. The last part of the action plan addresses how the school will involve and engage families and the larger community to achieve its goals. This would include workshops for families, programs that allow families and students to learn together, as well as any activities that involve a community-based organization or other larger community collaboration. Again, there should be alignment between the needs identified, the annual SMART goal, and the family or community activity. Schools should provide the start and end dates and list any partners or community-based organizations with whom they are working. As a reminder, our full webinar and PowerPoint deck on action planning includes school-facing guidance about the Family and Community Engagement section on the iPlan resources page or at the link in the video description below. Section 6 deals with multi-tiered systems of support, which include both the academic interventions as well as the social-emotional interventions and supports that are being provided to students. It is particularly important that schools have a plan for providing these supports. Additionally, this section satisfies New York State requirements for all schools around academic intervention services. Schools should indicate the tier of support, describe the criteria for receiving the service, note the program type or strategy being used, list the service delivery model. For example, is it small group? Is it individual? They should provide when the service is being offered, before, during, or after school, and answer whether any technology-based tools are being utilized as part of the intervention. In addition, schools are asked to describe the services being provided to students in temporary housing, which should account for how the Title I Students in Temporary Housing funding allocation is being utilized. As a reminder, our full webinar and PowerPoint deck on action planning includes school-facing guidance about the MTSS section, and it can be found on the iPlan resources page or at the link in the video description below. Section 7 of the CEP also includes parent and family-facing components. The Parent and Family Engagement Policy describes how the school will plan and implement effective parent and family engagement activities in order to improve academic achievement for students and overall school performance. The School Parent Compact describes how parents, staff, and students will share this responsibility. We have provided templates for schools for each of these documents that address all city, state, and federal requirements. However, schools are encouraged to customize both documents to reflect the uniqueness of their school community in consultation with the SLT. When reviewing this section, please provide feedback on any missing or inaccurate information. As always, we encourage you to reach out to your Director of State Federal Program Implementation, your DSFP, assigned to your superintendent, for any questions or to continue the conversation around educational planning and CEP review. For technical assistance with iPlan, please email iplan@schools.nyc.gov. These links are also included in the description below. Thank you for taking the time to join this webinar, and we wish you a productive planning and CEP review cycle, as well as a successful 2022-23 school year.